Okay, so salam everyone. Thank you for joining. Today is going to be the Rock Your Profile session. And this is a program that we started here at LinkedIn to help educate members like yourselves, our customers, non-for-profit organizations on how to be able to build out a really good looking LinkedIn profile. For those of you who don't know, my name is Ahmed. As you can see on the screen here, I'm a senior relationship manager in our talent solutions business. So what does that actually mean? Sounds like a very fancy title. It's actually not. I work in an account management and sales capacity. So my job is I work primarily with businesses here in Canada. I am based in Toronto, as mentioned. I work primarily with HR teams, and pretty much my job is teaching, educating our customers on how to be able to use LinkedIn to hire people like you, hire members like you. And that's something that we do across the globe. I know that we got some Hedegesa representation here from Liban, but just on the chat, where is everyone dialing in from? Feel free to add that into the chat. No one want to share where they're at? Oh, we got UAE, we got Dubai, we got London. Hello, here from Toronto. How's my UK accent? Do we like it? I've never been to the UK, by the way. We got ATL. Okay. Segal says that my accent is good. Should I do the whole presentation in this accent? No. I'll do it. I'll do it in my regular accent. Segal said yes. Okay. So good. So we got some representation here. Very good. I'm gonna go back to sharing my screen. Okay, now before we dive in, I wanted to give you a better idea of how we're going to be spending our time and what you can be able to expect from our session today. Now, we're going to be spending a few minutes just getting to know LinkedIn a bit. I'm sure we all know or have like a high level idea of what LinkedIn is. We all have profiles, but I want to give you more of an intimate look into it. Then we're going to be getting into your profile, your story. And this is where we're going to be spending most of our time. For today, I'm going to be sharing some best practice recommendations on how to strengthen very key parts of your LinkedIn profile. So so we're not going to be going through how to best use LinkedIn. That is what I would consider more of an advanced session. And if you feel like there's value that you've gotten out of today's workshop, I'm more than happy to work with Aisha and the Somalis in Tech team to make sure that we organize something like that or organize a more advanced session. Now I'm excited. I hope you're all excited. Let me see some emojis on or reactions on your screen so that I know that you're just as pumped as I am. Yes, Liban's excited. I'm sure everyone else is excited. Yes, Jennifer is excited. Okay, let's get started. So I'm going to introduce you to LinkedIn. Now, we define our vision. And what we mean by vision is the core existence of our company. So that's our dream, our aspiration as a company, and it's what drives us here every day at LinkedIn. And I'm going to share with you in a moment why I'm providing this information. And our vision as a company is to create economic opportunity for every member of the global workforce. So what that means in layman's term is that every individual who logs onto our platform, who has a profile, we want to make sure and we build our platform in a way where you can derive some kind of benefit from it. And everything is economic if you think about it in a direct way or an indirect way. And our vision is followed by our mission. Now we define our mission as our objective. This is the end point of where we want to get into. It's something that's realizable. It's something that's measurable. And for many of us here who work at LinkedIn, it's also inspirational to some degree, right? There's obviously some meaning to the work that we do. And our mission is to connect the world's professionals to make them productive and successful. So the key words here are productive and successful. So what does productive and successful actually mean, right? So many of us obviously use LinkedIn as a platform to find job opportunities. So that's part of it, but there's so many other ways where you can become productive and successful. Maybe it's scrolling on your news feed and you end up finding a piece of content about maybe it's your industry, maybe it's the industry you want to get into, and then you're more well informed about that. and that can help you in future conversations. Maybe it's learning a brand new skill through LinkedIn Learning, right? You can find many free courses on the LinkedIn platform or on the news feed that can help you with maybe something that's a hard skill or a soft skill. Maybe it's connecting with someone else, right? Maybe it's connecting with another individual that's going to be critical to helping you with finding your next opportunity. Productive, successful economic opportunity can materialize in a number of different ways. So now that you have a good idea of what LinkedIn is as a company, I wanted to talk a little bit more about our network. Now, when you think about LinkedIn in terms of all of its complexities, I'm not sure if you knew this. So on LinkedIn, we have over 722 million members on our platform. We have over 55 million companies that represent themselves on LinkedIn or that have a page on LinkedIn. We have about 14 million jobs that are currently active on the platform. And did you know that almost three people are hired every single minute on LinkedIn? 36,000 skills that are featured on the platform, and over 115,000 universities, and more than 36 or 358 billion. This is actually something I found out yesterday, updates per year. So there's a lot that's going on. And the reason I share this is because this is a testament to how powerful the platform is, right? When I found out this information, I said to myself, I'm completely underutilizing the platform in itself. And it's these data points that are what continues to fuel the opportunity that I was referring to earlier, right? Every one of these data points means something, and each represents something that you can take advantage of, whether it's connecting with other members on the platform, whether it's finding new job prospects, whether it's learning a brand new skill on the feed that you can add onto your profile. These are things that you can take advantage of. But, and this brings us to why we're all here today, and I promise you we're going to get into the meat of it, why, in order to be able to take advantage of all of these different data points, it all starts with being able to have a well built out profile. Because the reality is that most credible people that you want to try to connect with on LinkedIn are not going to respond to your connection requests if they don't know you, or if you don't have a well built out profile. Most recruiters or hiring managers will not contact you if your profile isn't fully completed, and so on and so forth. And the reason why I'm sharing this information is because I think to some degree, many people know what LinkedIn is, what we do, how it works. But I felt that like by sharing the why, it helps you all as members know that we build our platform in a way that keeps each of your best interests in mind, right? Which is again to the point that I'd mentioned around economic opportunity, making you productive and successful. So hopefully those points are helpful. And now that you have a good idea of what LinkedIn is, how our platform works, and you have a good feeling of what we do, let's now turn our attention to why we're all here today and turn it over to you. And thank you all again. I didn't mention this at the beginning, but thank you all for taking the time to invest yourselves in today's session. Now, your profile. And this is a point that I think I want to highlight and I want to emphasize, and something I would put in your notes as well too, is that your profile is a digital portfolio that represents you and your professional story. So contrary to popular belief, it is not a resume, right? So the way that you would treat a resume or a CV and how you call it in some parts of the world, that's not what LinkedIn is for. LinkedIn, your profile is a dynamic digital portfolio that's intended to be engaging. It's intended to be visual. It's intended to highlight your experiences to help you build your professional presence. And what we're going to be doing today is I'm going to walk you through a step-by-step, a best practices recommendations, if you will, to strengthen each part of your LinkedIn profile. And it all starts with a photo. Now, when your photo, this is a part where I don't think we want to overthink it. And I'm going to speed through this quickly because I think there's other more important aspects of your LinkedIn profile. So you want to obviously select a photo that truly represents you. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you want to give the person a sense who's looking at you from the outside and a sense of who you are, a sense of what your personality is, right? And so in some cases, some people choose to do a professional headshot. Some people don't, right? If you decide that, hey, you don't want to do a professional headshot or whatever the case may be, that is fine. I think a lot of us have smartphones today that have really high resolution cameras anyways to begin with. So as long as your photo is a high resolution, it has really good lighting and just features you. So not Hoya, not Abba, not your kids, just you by yourself. LinkedIn is not the place for that. We can save that for Facebook or for Instagram or for TikTok, right? That's what you want to make sure that it highlights, right? And there's also like LinkedIn, this is like far advanced from when I actually built out my profile for the first time. We have now photo filters that you can use to polish your photo, right? So, for me, I'm not that pretty, so I have the filters that make me look like I'm fresh, that I'm nice, and I'm actually looking like a complete mess right now. So you can actually do that when you're putting up your profile. So members with photos, and the reason why you want to do this is because, of course, it gives you way more visibility, 9 times more views, or 9 times more connection requests, 21 times more profile views, and 36 times more messages as well. Now, once you've added a photo, obviously the next most important thing is to update your industry. Now, adding your industry is really important. The reason being is because this is how others are going to be able to find you on their professional network, right? So for me, I work with HR teams, like I'd mentioned earlier. A lot of them are using a search tool to find net new talent, right? And for many of them, they're looking at industry specific filters. Now, in addition to adding your industry, this obviously increases the visibility, as I'd mentioned, because these are what recruiters are putting in their search strings when they're looking for talent. And the way to be able to do that is very simple. It's you click the pencil at the top of your profile where your headshot and name are, and then you scroll down to edit and add your industry. So maybe you're in manufacturing, maybe you're in automotive, maybe you're in tech, maybe you're in telecommunications, whatever the industry is, that's what you want to highlight, right? So make sure that you just make a note of that and make a mental note of that to make sure that that's something that you're updating as well too. So once you've added your photo, you have a really good photo. Again, it's not with Hoy, it's not with Abba. It's just one of just you and you alone. You've added your industry. Now, are you open? If you're open, if you are in the market and you are open to new opportunities, then this next feature is going to be for you. So what you also want to do is you want to show that you're open to work, right? So LinkedIn has now this really neat feature, which I'm not sure you've known about, where it allows you to set your job preferences, right? So if you're currently actively looking for a new opportunity, what you would do is you would go to your profile, click on the add profile section, select intro, and click looking for a new job opportunity. And that's what it's going to be able to signal to recruiters that you're on the market. So the idea behind this feature is that what it does is for recruiters that are searching the network, again, like I mentioned, these are the recruiters that I'm working with, they're constantly looking for people. This signals to them that you're on the market and that you're looking. This is intended to be hidden from your own employer. While LinkedIn does not promise 100% anonymity, someone from your company cannot actually see that, right? So that's something to also to keep in mind as well too. What you can also do too is there's another feature that they recently added about several months ago, I think almost about a year ago, where you can actually add a green banner that shows that you're open to work, right? And this obviously is you're being upfront, you're being transparent, and you're letting your network know that you are, of course, essentially looking for job opportunities. And a lot of the times this is for people that are kind of out of work. Maybe they've been furloughed, maybe they've been laid off. So this is a feature for sure that you want to be able to take advantage of. And now we're going to talk about summary. Now, this is the about section of your page. And I think for me personally, probably one of the most important sections of your profile. So I would definitely be more attuned at this part in case I'm boring you with my voice. And the about section is essentially your elevator pitch, your first impression. Um, and obviously you want to be able to do this in a very clear and concise way. So nothing more than 40 plus words is essentially the rule of thumb. So essentially what this is like there's a question that they used to pose back in the day where, okay, if you're in an elevator with a CEO, how would you describe what it is that you do and who you are? This is essentially what you're doing. This is your elevator pitch, like I'd mentioned. It should be, just to give you some guidance, it should be an introduction to who you are, highlight your accomplishments and your aspirations. Like, what are you aspiring to do, right? So for me, personally, I'm currently in account management and sales. I want to be in a role where I'm actually teaching other salespeople on some of the more effective strategies and tactics on how to be able to sell in this new climate. And actually, that's not something that I've highlighted in my summary, but something that I intend to highlight because that's something that I've recently discovered. And so you want to be able to do the same thing. I would err on, and this is easier said than done, but I would err on just using language that is more genuine and sincere to you, right? So a lot of the times we often use super formal language, which isn't necessarily necessary. The idea is you want to give the person a glimpse into who you are and make them feel like that when they're reading their profile, they're actually getting a sense of who you are. Keep it short and sweet. You don't need to list all of your career accomplishments. You have an experience section for that, which we'll touch on momentarily. And did you know that adding a summary makes your profile more likely to turn up in the future employer search? So when, like, again, like I'd mentioned, for recruiters that are looking at profiles, the summary is usually where they land on first. So if it's compelling, if it looks good, then typically you're increasing the probability of you being able to get a call back or an email or whatever the case may be. So I actually want to work on an activity here, and it's only going to take about 3 to 5 minutes. I'll put my timer on. And the idea here is, because I think this is the most important, what I want you all to do is to brainstorm what you're going to be able to write in your summary. And you don't actually have to write it out fully in these 5 minutes, but what you can do to help you with getting started is writing down some questions that you would ask yourself to help you with brainstorming some of your answers. So what industry have I worked in? What industry do I want to get into? Or do I want to stay in the same industry? What unique characteristics do I bring, right? So a lot of the darn people, they say, they talk about this idea and this concept about superpowers. What are your superpowers? What is something that you've always been admired for, right? So for me, personally, the thing that I've always been admired for is my sense of humor and my charm, right? And oftentimes I'll joke about that. I'll be like, hey, there's nothing in here, but I have a lot of charm and a sense of humor, and that's what gets me by, right? And these are things that you want to highlight as well too in your summary. What do you love, and what experiences have shaped you, right? So I'm gonna actually put these questions into the chat. Examples of words that might spark some thinking is, are you passionate? Are you focused? Do you have a good sense of humor? Or maybe you're more on the analytical side. You're like, you're a mathematician, and so you love numbers. These are things that you want to express and think about as well. So I'm going to put those questions, and I'm going to put 5 minutes on the timer for you to go through, to put down a list of questions in the question section that I mentioned on your worksheet. Okay, so the featured section allows you to be able to showcase the work that you're most proud of right at the top of your profile. So it's a featured content. So, a lot of what we've talked about now are just words that you can use. Now, these are the visuals to back up what it is that you have to bring to the table. So you can share articles, images, documents, links that help bring your story to life. So for me personally, I start in a group of guys and we do a podcast, and we have podcasts that we release every couple of weeks. It's Say Word for those of you who are interested in hearing an episode. And so that is something that I would list in my profile as part of my experience or as part of the featured content, just to kind of back up what it is that I'm saying. And it doesn't necessarily need to be limited to your own personal work, right? It doesn't have to be articles that you've written. Maybe you haven't gotten to that point in your career where you're at that point where you've kind of put together content of your own. This can actually be content that maybe your company has put together, or maybe the school that you attend, any brand assets that might help just bring a visual to life, right? And again, the idea here is, this is not one of the sections that I would overthink or I would overcomplicate. This is just more decision. These are more just the part of your profile that takes the extra step to bringing your profile to life, right? And that's the idea here, right? It's taking that extra step to building out a really well built out profile. And that's what you all want to do in order to get more visibility, in order to increase the probability of future job prospects. Now let's talk about experience. Now, again, at the beginning, what did I say? I said that LinkedIn is a digital portfolio, so not a resume, right? So this is where you're going to actually talk about your professional story within a specific job, volunteer experience, or any accomplishments that you've recently had, right? So think of this when you're detailing your work experience, think of this as you having to explain this to someone about what it is that you've done, right? So you want to write it in a short paragraph, and you want the people to read it on the other side to read it as a story, right? So not like as a bullet point, like your resume, like, oh, I achieved X, Y, and Z. This was what my roles and what my responsibilities are. You want to tell it as if you're doing it as a story, right? If you've worked at a startup company, or maybe perhaps you don't have work experience, or maybe you haven't worked for a company that's reputable, like a LinkedIn or a Microsoft, this is an opportunity to maybe share a bit about what the company has done, right? Give maybe a brief introduction, as you can see here with ABC Sales Technologies, before actually detailing your experience. And then obviously talk about what you've done in your role, but again, sharing that as if like you're conversing with someone versus saying it like in a resume format. And again, similar to a resume, this is the only similarity, is you want to share the impact that you've had, or the results that you've delivered, or the change that you've created. So for me as a salesperson or as an account manager, it's very straightforward. Whenever our recruiter is looking at my profile, they want to see how much revenue have I driven for the business, how much sales I've created. And then if maybe you're an engineer or a developer, or you're working towards that, there's obviously different levels of impact that you've made. Maybe it's a app you've created, a technology that you've helped build, efficiencies you've created. So there's impact can translate into a variety of different things as well too, right? And back to like the transferable piece, right? If like maybe you're trying to jump from manufacturing, or you're going from one industry into a completely different other, this is maybe where you want to subtly highlight how your skills transfer into the industry that you want to get into. A couple of ways. So volunteer experience can be used if maybe you're a student and you haven't had the work experienced yet, right? And so these are things that maybe you want to highlight and show that like, hey, maybe I haven't gotten paid to do something, but this is what I've done while I was pursuing my studies or my education. So this step is for you. So again, the same rule of thumb, like I'd mentioned previously in step 6, and with your summary, you want to share and you want to highlight, right? If you are a working professional, I would still strongly recommend highlighting your volunteer experience, because this is what's going to help you with the differentiator, right? It's one thing if you've had work experience, it's one thing if you've been able to have make an impact, but the volunteer experience shows the kind of well-rounded individual that you are, right? Maybe it's highlighting experience that you've done at a food drive here. Food drives and food banks are a big thing here. Maybe it's a volunteer experience that you've done with, a local organization. You want to highlight that. You want to share what were some of the responsibilities and how it actually contributed to who you are as an individual. This is obviously going to be a lot shorter than with your work experiences, maybe 1 or 2 sentences of what you've done. And actually, fun fact, did you know that hiring managers say that volunteer experiences are sometimes equivalent to formal work experience? Actually, how I got the job with LinkedIn was actually highlighting a project or an initiative I did years ago, that was intended to what I did was we created a film, a group of Somali brothers and I, that was intended to showcase and highlight issues that Somalis face here in this part of the world, as it means to kind of bridge that gap with outside communities. And once you've added your volunteer experience, now we're going to shift into adding your skills. Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, skills, there are about 36,000 skills on LinkedIn, which means that there's a skill, there's bound to be a skill that you have that you can highlight on your LinkedIn profile. Rule of thumb is obviously adding 5 at least 5. That obviously helps with your profile visibility. Again, when recruiters are doing searches on LinkedIn and they're trying to find people to fill roles, skills is one of the search strings that they use to fill up matches. So again, for the purposes of profile visibility, this is something that you want to double down on. And again, it can be a combination of hard skills, soft skills. Maybe again, if you're analytical, you want to highlight technologies that you've used. Maybe you're a black belt, Six Sigma, or that's something that you're working towards, or maybe you're a green belt. Whatever the case may be, this is where you want to highlight that and making sure. And it's very simple on how to be able to do that. It's just literally a click of a few buttons. And you can also get endorsed for it as well too. So that's something that's really cool, right? So people within your network can endorse you for those skills. And if you want to take it a step further, we actually have certifications that help you with being able to yeah, and with skills, you can actually, sorry, I lost my train of thought. What you can do also too is you can get endorsed for them as well too. And if you want to take it a step further, you can actually get certified for those skills. And then that actually gives you a badge that you can brag about. And then that actually, recruiters are actually looking for those specific skills. And if they see that you've been certified on LinkedIn for them, then it also really helps with that profile visibility piece. Questions are pretty straightforward, but if you have any questions on them, please feel free to jot them down. And then we can address those towards the latter part of the meeting or the workshop. So again, really the headline or the so what to take from this is skills are a really good way to showcase what you're good at, what makes you unique. Now we're going to shift gears and talk about recommendations, which is the last piece of the pie. Now, recommendations, again, are probably one of the most powerful ways. This is probably like the second most important next to summary in terms of helping you build your professional credibility, right? So it's one thing that you're bragging about yourself. It's another thing when someone else is doing the bragging for you. And the thing is that the way that recommendations work is that once it's on your profile, it's on there forever so that people can really get a good sense of, not just who you are from your summary, but they also know what people have experienced or what it's been like to work with you. If you don't have a request, I would strongly suggest and strongly advise requesting a recommendation from a colleague. For those of you who are in school, maybe it's from professors. That was something that I actually did when I was in school. Was I got one professor, I think I got a couple to highlight and to offer a testimonial about what it was like to teach me, or what it was like to have me a student in their class as well too, because that can actually go a really long way. And if you want to write a recommendation for me as well too, I would welcome that gladly. So, and that's just kind of a small plug for me in terms of, if you found this workshop to be useful. Couple of rules of thumb or a couple of rules when it comes to requesting a recommendation. You also want to customize your request, right? So when you're making the ask, you don't want to send a general ask or a general request that, hey, just write my recommendation for me. You want to be very prescriptive and detailed in terms of what do you want to be recommended for, right? Maybe it's a project that you worked on or an initiative, or if you're a student, what were some of the unique attributes about me being in your classroom, and how did I respond to coursework, et cetera, et cetera. So you want to make sure that you spell it out for the person on the other side on what you want them to recommend you on. So kind of like a recommendation letter. Another rule of thumb is this is one of those things that you want to give before you get. So if you are looking to request a recommendation from someone, it might be helpful to give that one or offer one first before you actually go around and asking for them, right? Third rule of thumb too as well is that once you get the recommendation, there's actually a feature where you can get them to edit it. So if there's maybe something that you want them to include or something that they forgot, you can actually work with them in terms of making sure that they include that once everything has been edited. And that is all, my friends. That is all. It is literally 9 simple steps, very simple, easy steps on how to be able to build out a well built out profile. Couple housekeeping things around that as well, just in case that you don't forget. Make sure you, of course, add and update your location if you haven't already. This obviously helps you with discovering opportunities and connections in your area, right? Because that's how the way that the whole job algorithm works is like it matches you based on where you are located geographically. Of course, add your education. We've all paid, depending on where you are in the world, a lot of money to pursue some level of education. So make sure that you're highlighting that and bragging about that. I know I did when I was coming out of university. And you can actually choose where in your profile it actually gets displayed. Um, if there's any publications or posts or articles that you may have written, maybe it's for like a side project that you do, make sure you highlight that in your features section as well. And then if there's any awards that you've won, right? Um, maybe awards that you've won in sports, maybe it's in a competition that you've done for a project, whatever the case may be, anything that you can brag about, make sure you're bragging about them as well too. And with that said, thank you all for your attention. I'm okay to go a bit past the 12th. Right now it's 12:30 p.m. Eastern mark as well too for any questions that you have. But yeah, I've essentially equipped you, or I've done my best to equip you with all of the tools that you need to build out a very good looking and effective profile.